right. I'm so used to hearing recordings started, but it doesn't say that on this on this version of Zoom. So good morning. I'm going to take a moment to arrive before I invite everyone else to arrive. Um, so welcome. My name is Aishah Shahidah Simmons, and I'm really, really happy I joined the Elm Community Insight Sangha um, towards the end of last year. And it's just been really wonderful and just grateful for technology because I wouldn't be able to be a part in any engaged way without it because I am based in Washington, D.C. And so today I will lead, guide a sit, a meditation sit, and then give a talk on Audre Lorde as a gateway to Dharma. It is March, it's Women's History Month, and the uh, Sangha, we decided to really think about women in Buddhism in honor of Women's History Month. So that's what we'll be talking about. So I want to invite everyone to just get present, to be present in your body. So I invite you to close your eyes or lower your gaze. I recognize that closing one's eyes may not be comfortable, but if that's not the case, do not close your eyes, lower your gaze, and just really turn your attention inward, connecting inward. We spend so much time externalizing, and especially in this digital age where everything from the moment we open our eyes, often that we're looking at our phone, we're checking in about what's happening outside. And that usually impacts what's happening inside. So this is an invitation to tune in to what's happening inside. And while doing that, if you can, I just want to invite you just to have some mindful movement. Just invite you, if you're able, and you may not be able to, just lift your hands up, arms up, inhaling when you do that, and then bringing them down, exhaling. And then again, inhaling, reaching up, and exhaling. And if that's difficult, just thinking about when you're inhaling to the top of your head, just to the crown of your head, inhaling, and then exhaling to the soles of your feet. Connecting with the breath. Take a sip of water. And then one more time with the arms up, overhead, and then down. And then I invite you to place your hands on your thighs, either palms facing down or upward, whichever is comfortable. And your feet planted on the floor, connecting with the earth. Connecting with our breath. And for some, connecting with the breath is not easy. It can be triggering, it can be difficult. And so that's why I invited everyone to put their hands on their legs, Because just to connect with the sensations, if the breath is challenging, connect with the sensation of your hands on your legs, your feet on the floor, if you're sitting in a chair, of your sits bones in the chair on the floor, if you're lying down, your whole body on the either ground or bed, connecting with the earth. It is said that when Siddhartha Gautama, on the eve of his awakening, that he touched the earth as witness. And so just connecting, remembering that the earth is our witness. The earth holds us through the profound gift of gravity. The Zen Buddhist ancestor Thich Nhat Hanh offers a meditation of breathing in, I feel space. Breathing out, I feel free. Just connecting with the miraculous reality known as human life, but connecting internally. Letting go of judging mind. Letting go of comparing mind. Letting go of fixing mind. Inviting curiosity, inviting beginner's mind. Even if you've been practicing for decades, each moment is new. when we quiet the mind, we often become acutely aware of the thoughts. I mean, the thoughts are always there, but it's really when we quiet the mind, the thoughts, they rise up. We're aware of them. And so I invite you to observe the thoughts without getting caught up in the thoughts, treating the thoughts like clouds passing in the sky, treating the thoughts like sound that you hear, but you don't necessarily get caught up in the sound unless it's a song and you're dancing or something. So try not to have judgment of the thoughts, just to be with them as you focus on your breath, as you connect with the sensations in your body. Try not to judge the thoughts, and recognize that each time that you're aware of a thought, you can just bring it back to the breath. Bring it back, bring your attention, back to your breath. Bring your attention back to the sensations without feeling defeated, even if you have to do it every single second. Because each time that you are aware that your mind has gone off, has wandered off somewhere, is a moment of awakening, that you're awakening to the fact that the mind has wandered. And you just lovingly, gently, compassionately bring the attention back to the breath, to your sensations, connecting with the earth. bringing your attention back to the breath, to the sensations in your body, remembering that the body, our bodies, are always in the present moment. I also recognize, as someone who loves sitting meditation, that sitting meditation and walking meditation can often be experienced as solitary practices, even when practicing in community. And today I wanted to offer some chanting. I felt really called to share chanting today. And chanting isn't necessarily about being on tune and singing, hitting that note. And it's really about connecting, connecting with the teachings and connecting with the Sangha, the community. I recognize that there may be people here today who do not identify as Buddhist, and that's fine. Everyone is welcome. I will offer a Buddhist chant. With Zoom, it just definitely doesn't work in terms of everybody chanting. It just, unfortunately, Zoom doesn't work for collective chanting, though I know that some of us in the Sangha are in together in person, so that can work. The chant is related, is connected to the three refuges of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, or Dhamma, Sangha. Dhamma is the Pali word for Dharma, and Dharma is Sanskrit. Pali is the language that the Buddha spoke. So Dharma and Dhamma are the same. And so when people take refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma or Dharma, and Sangha, I just want to share what that is for people who don't know, that Buddha it is not a person. As I started out by saying that Siddhartha Gautama was human, and he became enlightened, awakened, and became a Buddha. So that when people are taking refuge in the Buddha, they are taking refuge in awakening, in enlightening in this lifetime. When they take refuge in the Dharma, you're taking refuge in the teachings from thousands of years ago up until present moment. You're also taking refuge in the reality of life as it is, without attachment. And when you're taking refuge in the Sangha, historically it was meant in terms of taking Sangha. The Sangha was the community of monastics, of nuns and monks, arhants, awakened people. But now it is, the community of those who are on paths of seeking awakening. And so this chant is Buddha, Udam, Sangam, Dhammam, Sangam or Sangha, one day. It is a way to take refuge in those three qualities. It is a way to tap in, and it is a way to also kind of use another form. You're tapping into your subconscious. Often when we sing a song, practice a song over and over again, you find that it comes up. And so I am new to chanting. Actually, I came out of a tradition where we were not encouraged to chant. But I really, really love chanting. I was raised as a Sufi Muslim, and we did what's called zikr early mornings, which is remembrance in zikr, and is Sufi Islam of gods, chanting as an African American whose ancestral roots are in Black church, love singing, loving sacred music. So just another way to connect, that there are ways, particularly here in the US, where chanting is not viewed as uh, real meditation. And I just offer, um, when I say I offer, I join the chorus, no pun intended, of those who recognize it, that it is a form of meditation. So I will do it once so you all can hear how it goes. And then afterwards, I will do it 7 times and invite you on mute and Zoom to do it if you'd like. And definitely, obviously, those in person. Buddham, Buddham, Buddham one day, Dharma, Dharma, Dharma one day, Sangha, Sangha, Sangha one day, Buddham, Dhammam, Sangham one day. So now I will do it 7 times. I invite you to join me. And then afterwards, we'll just go into moments of silence. Buddham, Buddham, Buddham one day, Dhammam, Dhammam, Dhammam one day, Sangam, Sangam, Sangam one day, Buddham, Dhammam, Sangam one day, Buddham, Buddham, Buddham one day, Dhammam, Dhammam, Dhammam one day, Sangam, Sangam, Sangam one day, Buddham, Dhammam, Sangam one day, Buddham, Buddham, Buddham one day, Dhammam, Dhammam, Dhammam one day, Sangam, Sangam, Sangam one day, Buddham, Dhammam, Sangam one day, Buddham, Buddham, Buddham one day, Dhammam, Dhammam, Dhammam one day, Sangam, Sangam, Sangam one day, Buddham, Dhammam, one Sangam one day, Buddham, Buddham, Buddham one day, Samam Dhammam Dhammam one day. Sangam 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 one day. Buddham Dhammam Sangam one day. Buddham 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 one day. Dhammam 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 one day. Sangam 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 one day. Buddham Dhammam Sangam one day. Buddham 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 one day. Dhammam 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 one day. Sangam 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 one day. Buddham Buddham Dhammam Sangam one day. Buddham 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 one day. Dhamma In about a minute, I will ring the gong 3 times to bring us back. Bringing in honor of all of our awakening, in honor of the teachings, the ancient teachings, the contemporary teachings, in honor of the Sangha, the community. Good morning. I'm just going to invite everyone to do one of 3 things. Just take a break and have bathroom hydration break. While doing that, you may want to journal or do some mindful movement for about 5 minutes. It's 10 after the hour, and we will come back at 11:15, and I will share why I believe that Audre Lorde is a gateway to the Dharma. Okay. It is 15 after the hour. So, the title of my talk is Audre Lorde as a gateway, as a gateway to the Dharma. And I believe in libations, which is usually pouring water in honor. It's not only African, but I'm, as an African descended woman, it's African tradition of, of pouring water to the earth in honor of ancestors, but also in honor of teachings. And so I always say I will uh, pour libation with words. So I will use words. So I open with words from the way of tenderness through race, sexuality, and gender by one of my elder spiritual sisters, Oshu Zenju Earthlyn Manuel, PhD, poet, author, ordained Zen priest, and medicine woman of the drum. She writes, spiritual awakening arrives from our ordinary lives, our everyday struggles with each other. It may even erupt from the fear and rage that we tiptoe around. The challenges of race, sexuality, and gender are the very things that the spiritual path to awakening requires us to tend to as aspirants to peace. even though it has been said that we can awaken right here where we are, in the very bodies we inhabit, on this planet upon which we walk or move, we still speak of awakening as it happens somewhere outside of our particular embodiment in time and space. The silence regarding race, sexuality, and gender in spiritual literature may create the illusion that all is well in our spiritual communities, or that speaking of our unique embodiment in terms of race, sexuality, and gender is not necessary. Close quote. And again, that's from her book, The Way of Tenderness, Awakening Through Race, Sexuality, and Gender. Zenju is the author of numerous books, and she has one coming out on March 21st called Opening to Darkness, 8 Ways for Being in the Absence of Light in Unsettling Times. In the introduction to her recently published book, Casting Indra's Net, Fostering Spiritual Kinship and Community, activist, lay Buddhist teacher, professor, counselor, and Dharma kin, Dr. Pamela Ayo Yatunde writes, "You'll find, however, I give myself license to interpret these wisdom teachings to fit our times. Indeed, I have been criticized for taking liberties with Buddhist teachings. The critiques are valid from the standpoint that I'm not holding only the traditional teachings. I am not holding to the traditional teachings exclusively because the traditional teachings, as I understand them, are largely about the transformation of individual suffering. To the extent they apply socially, it is through the belief that when one has transcended one's own suffering, that will impact those in one's life. I believe that to be true to a degree, but when that enlightened individual lives in the midst of mobbery, they are also prone to mob influence. We need more than a traditional reading of our ancient wisdom texts to meet the tension between true freedom and the voracious appetite for authoritarianism." I open with words from Black lesbian Buddhist teachers to lay a Buddhist foundation for talking about race, gender, and sexuality in the context of awakening. In tandem with Elm Community Insights monthly theme of women in Dharma, I want to share how Black feminist writers, in this specific instance, Audre Lorde, are gateways to Dharma practice. 3.5 years ago, I left a lineage that I was in for 17 years that didn't encourage reading the suttas. Suttas are sacred Buddhist texts, they're scriptures, as part of one's practice. The focus was on the meditation practice itself. The belief, as I understood the teachings in the lineage, was that reading about the meditation practice will not necessarily help you to practice meditation. You have to practice. Swimming was the analogy often used. You can read about swimming all day, but it's not until you get into the pool or the ocean and practice swimming with a teacher that you actually begin to swim. Essentially, we have to get into the ocean of misery and swim in it, i.e., practice through meditation to reach the other side of the shore. I understand these teachings that I received for 17 years because I personally can get caught up with intellectualizing everything and even bypass the embodied experience of meditation because I'm in my head. Simultaneously, however, and since leaving in 2019, I've come to understand that it is important to both practice and also to study what one is practicing. I am grateful for the solid Vipassana meditation practice that I cultivated during those 17 years, and I'm working hard to develop my understanding of the theory that matches the depth of my practice. And I share this to provide context, because I was first transformed and saved by Audre Lorde's writings in 1990 12 years before I sat my first Vipassana meditation course in 2002. However, it wasn't until the summer of 2021 when I was a student in Dr. Rima Vesley Fladd's, my Dharma kin and dear sister friends Dharma of class, the Dharma of James Baldwin and Audre Lorde. It was an online class at Barry Center for Buddhist Studies that I fully embraced that which I recognized in 2013, 13 years after Audre Lorde's words saved my life, that she was a gateway to Dharma. I am a Black feminist, lesbian, survivor of childhood and adult sexual violence who found refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha 20 years ago. And as I shared during our meditation, Buddha means awakened or enlightened. The person we call Buddha was a human being named Siddhartha Gautama. And through his spiritual quest, resulting in deep meditation practice, he realized himself from total suffering. He awakened. The essence of his 40 years of teachings, and this is, we're talking about 5th century BC, 20 over 2,600 years ago, was that we too can awaken. So when I say I'm taking refuge, I take refuge in the Buddha, I'm saying that I take refuge in the qualities that lead to awakening. And when I'm taking refuge in the Dhamma or Dharma, I'm taking refuge in the thousands of years of teachings which offer a roadmap to follow along the path. I'm also taking refuge in reality itself and learning from all the lessons it provides for me to practice. And taking refuge in the Sangha is taking refuge in the community of those who are also working to awaken. And in my instance, while I'm definitely connected to Buddhist Sangha, I'm connected to other Sanghas that are not necessarily Buddhist, but also have a shared commitment to awakening. So long before I took my dip in the Dharma ocean, as I like to call it, in 2002, Black feminism was, and it still is, a core refuge. As a teenager and young adult woman in the 1980s and early 90s, I devoured the words of the Combahee River Collective, Alice Walker, Toni K. Bambara, Audre Lorde, Barbara Smith, Cheryl Clark, Ntozake Shange, Bell Hooks, June Jordan, Pat Parker, Beverly Guy Sheftall, and many more, as if my life depended on it, because it did. I do not want to assume that everyone knows who Audre Lorde was, and I would offer still is in spirit form. So I will just share briefly about her. She was a self-defined Black lesbian feminist mother, warrior, poet. In her 58 years lifetime in the physical form, Sister Lorde published 10 volumes of poetry, 5 works of prose, including Zami, A New Spelling of My Name, The Cancer Journals, A Burst of Light, Sister Outsider, Our Dead Behind Us, From a Land Where Other People Live, Cut Cables to Rage, Uses of the erotic as power in the marvelous arithmetics of distance. She is credited with co-founding with Barbara Smith Kitchen Table Women of Color Press, the first U.S. publisher by, for, and about women of color. In her lifetime, Sister Lorde was a recipient of many distinguished honors and awards, include being named the New York State Poet Laureate from 1991 to 1993. She was not able to complete her term because she became very ill toward the end of her life. And towards the end of her life, she was given and fully embraced the African name Gamba Adisa, which means warrior, she who makes her meaning clear. She died on November 19th, 1992, after a 14-year battle with breast cancer, which metastasized to her liver. She's recognized as one of the most important radical Black feminists in the latter half of the 20th century. Recently, couple of years ago, Google dedicated on her birthday, February 18th, the whole Google web page, when the homepage to her life and legacy. She is quoted and cited. There are many books and films. Um, I'm just noticing that my sister Jennifer Abad is on the Zoom, and she produced a powerful documentary called "The Edge of Each Other's Battles," which is about the famous "I Am Your Sister" conference celebrating Audre Lorde's life and legacy while she was still here in April of 1990. So I never met Audre Lorde in person, but her book, Sister Outsider Essays and Speeches, saved my life when I read it in 1990, the first of countless times. I came to Audre Lorde because of suffering. I was 21 and afraid to live my authentic life as a Black feminist lesbian. I devoured her words as if my life depended on them, because they did. Sister Outsider was an invitation and a call to be fully embodied in all of my apparent identities in this lifetime. Audre's words invited me to tap into the innate power from within, to both witness, face, and even become friends with fear. 12 years later, I came to Buddhism because I was suffering. I was in deep search of spiritual tools in tandem with my Black feminist psychologist to help me navigate the terrain of childhood and adult sexual trauma. As a struggling independent documentary filmmaker, neck deep in post production on my film, Know the Rape documentary, I didn't have any money for retreats. And so I was trying to figure out where I could go. And I learned from a friend, James Hooley, about Vipassana meditation taught by S.N. Goenka and conducted by his assistant teachers. And all of those courses in that tradition are dana based, which means you don't have to pay up front to take a course. So I took my first course in December 2002, and it quickly became a steadfast anchor and compass to my life's journey until I left the lineage in September 2019. Present day, I compare my first reading of Sister Outsider in spring 1990 to my first 10-day Vipassana meditation course in winter of 2002. Both experiences were seismic and paradigm shifting. In each instance of reading Sister Outsider as a frightened, brand new 21-year-old who was struggling with coming out, in each instance, so of reading Sister Outsider as a frightened, brand new 21-year-old who was struggling with coming out as a lesbian, and the instance of taking my first 10-day Vipassana course in the Goenka lineage as a curious 33-year-old who agreed to disconnect from the outside world for 10 days and took refuge for the first time in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and did a deep dive within the inner space known as Aishah in this lifetime. Each time, I felt like I had been given a glass of water that quenched an insatiable thirst in the middle of a vast desert. In all of my combined 11 years of moving in the world with Lord's writings and practicing Vipassana meditation, I never connected those initial experiences that ignited me to look within. I believe that's in part because Audre Lorde never identified as a Buddhist, and I was in a tradition that didn't encourage incorporating outside readings into one's practice. As I said, we weren't even encouraged to read the suttas. So it wasn't until I created and taught the graduate and undergraduate seminar, Audre Lorde, The Life and Work of a Silence Breaker, at Temple University in spring 2013 and fall 2014, that I quietly experienced Lorde's prose and poetry through my Buddhist lens. 11 years after my first Vipassana course and months away from sitting my first 30-day course in the Goenka tradition, one of my graduate students in my Lorde seminar, named Ness White, wrote a book review of the book Conversations with Audre Lorde, edited by Joan Wiley. During Ness's oral presentation about the book, he read an excerpt from Lorde's 1976 interview with Nina Winters included in the collection. And I am quoting, and these are Audre's words, quote, pain is important. How we invade it, how we succumb it, how we deal with it, how we transcend it. I unlocked the old window of my very old Victorian house on Staten Island. Somehow the chain broke and the window fell down immediately and caught my hand. There was no way to pull it out, and everyone was gone for the weekend. I broke the window and called for help, and it was 7 minutes before someone came. I have the scars to remind me. It was crucial, that 7 minutes. In it, I'd lived the whole history of pain from start to finish, the genesis of pain, where you put it, how you channel it, and how you end it. The choice was immediate, to die or to bear the pain. And what does bearing mean? It means changing or going through it. It is not death. It is an experience encapsulated. It could stop. It could be ended by chewing off my arm, for example, but that was not possible for me. So the pain is transformed. The intensity changes. It has to stop or it has to change. This was a physical knowledge that I had not had before, that pain has immutability, that it is very, very important, and that is just as true about emotional pain. It will change or stop. I felt at that point there was nothing I could not do, nothing that I could not deal with, because pain will either change or stop. Always, I have tested this since then, and it is always clear and workable. Pain is fluid. It's only when you conceive it as something static that it is unbearable. Close quote. When I heard Ness read Lord's words aloud in class, I was mesmerized. I said quietly to myself, because it was not a Dharma class and students were doing oral presentations, oh my goddess, that's Dharma. Audre Lorde did what many of us yogis are taught to do: observe pain as a constantly changing gross sensation, nothing more and nothing less. I was stunned. And I should say that she shared this, she had this awakening, and I'm intentional with those words, before she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I also want to just say that Ness, who to the best of my knowledge is not a Buddhist, was profoundly influenced by Lorde's writings. And in the next semester, he took a class, Introduction to Graduate Women's Studies class, and his research and writing was focused on a beautiful paper titled Understanding Using the Breath as a Feminist Tool for Resistance, in which he cites Lorde's writings throughout, in the fall, in that paper. And this was fall 2013. I really, and Ness is a powerful poet, and they have an incredible book of meditations, affirmations for trans men. And so, yeah, it's just really powerful. So I just felt a need to lift up Ness's work and words and insight, because it was really in that class that I made the connection, because I really was, Audre Lorde was here, Dharma was there. Never the two shall meet. And Ness, not a Dharma practitioner, just brought it front and center. And I am eternally grateful for that. And so how does this relate to the Buddhist suttas? In the Anicca Sutta, and Anicca means impermanence, which is just a core teaching in Buddhism, impermanence, that things are constantly changing. The Buddha said, 3 kinds of feelings, O monks, or O yogis, noble ones, are impermanent, compounded, dependently arisen, liable to destruction, to fading away, to cessation, namely pleasant feeling, painful feeling, and neutral feeling. So Lorde spoke experientially and contemporarily in 1976, in tandem to what Buddha said over 2,600 years ago about how pain is mutable through impermanence. Her experience brought to life the Buddha's teachings in ways that I hadn't even recognized. Her experience deepened my understanding of the Buddha's teachings. In the Salatha Sutta, which is known as the arrow, we hear in Buddhist circles, and Alice Walker has a book called The Second Arrow. The Buddha said, when touched with a feeling of pain, the uninstructed run of the mill person sorrows, grieves, and laments and beats, and I'm going to use gender neutral language, their breast becomes distraught. So they feel two pains, physical and mental, just as if they were to shoot a person with an arrow and right afterward were to shoot them with another one. So that they would feel the pain of two arrows. In the same way, when touched with a feeling of pain, the uninstructed run-of-the-mill person sorrows, grieves, and laments, beats their chest, becomes distraught, so they feel two pains, physical and mental. So the difference in skillfulness between the sage and the run-of-the-mill person. For a learned person, clearly seeing this person and this world and the next, desirable things don't charm the mind, undesirable ones bring no resistance. And I think about that in terms of the profound lesson that pain, teacher, I should say, brings in all of our lives. And we all experience pain. I mean, from the most mundane to the most egregious forms of pain, emotional, physical, the pain and impermanence brings us so much pain. And through that experience of Audrey's arm getting caught in the window and not receiving any help for 7 minutes, she had the opportunity and was able to, I don't know if I would have been able to just be with it, to observe and be with it. And then I wonder, I mean, I don't know because I never met her, I never had a conversation. Did that experience play a role in how she was able to um, conf- live, not only live with cancer, but write about it and talk about it? She wrote frequently about impermanence in her poetry and prose. She was a breast cancer survivor who courageously wrote about her mastectomy in 1980, okay, not 2023, and decision not to wear a breast prosthesis in her landmark timeless book originally published in 1980, The Cancer Journals. She also wrote about her decision not to have a liver biopsy due to metastatic cancer in the collection A Burst of Light and Other Essays, originally published in 1988. So, I mean, the Cancer Journals and A Burst of Light, I mean, she was ahead of her time, and these books have been reissued, they are available. And she says in the Cancer Journals, once I face death as a life process, what is there possibly left for me to fear? Once I face death as a life process, what is there possibly left for me to fear? In Today Is Not the Day, one of Lorde's last poems written April 22nd, 1992. It always sticks with me because that is my birthday. 7 months before her November 17th, 1992 continuation into another form in another realm, Lorde acknowledges her death standing adjacent to her human life. And in Michelle Parkinson's and Ada Gay Griffin's award-winning 1995 film, A Litany for Survival, the life and work of Audre Lorde, Audrey reads this poem on camera, visibly near the end of her life journey in her human form, and simultaneously facing, with courage. I'm not saying that she wasn't afraid, but with courage. And I just want to read an excerpt. I can't just sit here staring death in her face, blinking and asking for a new name by which to greet her. I am not afraid to say unembellished, I am dying, but I do not want to do it looking the other way. Today is not the day. It could be, but it is not. How can I not think about in the Buddhist impermanence chants when I read those stanzas in Lorde's poems? And I will read that chant in English, and it is, all things are impermanent. They arise and they pass away. To be in harmony with this truth brings great happiness. All things are impermanent. They arise and they pass away. To be in harmony with this truth brings great happiness. Audre said, I can't just sit here staring death in her face, blinking and asking for a new name by which to greet her. I am not afraid to say unembellished, I am dying, but I do not want to do it looking the other way. So, despite these undeniable examples of Lorde's relationality to Dharma teachings, I didn't know what to do with all of it because I wasn't in relationship with Dharma teachers at that time who could help me expound on this further. I learned early on to compartmentalize my Black feminism and Buddhism. So, seeing and experiencing Dharma through a Black feminist, queer, and straight lens, especially those who weren't Buddhist, wasn't a reality I knew. It was another 8 years before I fully embraced Lorde and other Black feminist writers' writings as gateways to the Dharma. In March 2021, Rima Vasily Falad, my Dharma sister, shared the description for her 8-week summer online class, The Dharma of Baldwin and Lorde. And at first sight, I was ignited and immediately enrolled for the lottery in that course. I was the first person registered. That's how excited I was. Rima texted me. She said, "You're the first person." In her diverse, predominantly Black, Indigenous, people of color class comprised of Dharma teachers, Buddhist practitioners, and non-practitioners who love Lorde and Baldwin. This 8-week experience created a sacred space for me to give myself full permission to see and name Dharma in Lorde's writings, specifically Sister Outsider, as well as Baldwin's The Fire Next Time. And those were the primary texts. And everything holistically came full circle when Rima and I co-taught our 6-week Black Buddhism and Black Feminism course at Barry a couple of months later. And it was in that class when I talked about Audre Lorde's teachings as the gateway that I reread the Loka Vipatti Sutta, more commonly known as the 8 Worldly Winds. And several of us at Elm Community Insight will be exploring this in greater detail in our talks in the month of April. But I want to share it here. And so the 8 Worldly Winds are gain, loss, status, disgrace, censure, praise, pleasure, pain. These conditions among human beings are inconstant, impermanent, subject to change. We cannot have gain without loss. We cannot have status without disgrace. We cannot have praise without censure. We cannot have pleasure without pain. And yet we run for one and run from the other one. And so that is that is my laywoman's interpretation of the sutta. And I will share an excerpt from Lorde's poem, A Litany for Survival. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. And so Audre talks about that dichotomy of the, well, the power of fear and how it impacts about just really not being able to be in the present moment because we're afraid that we're not going to have what we want. So whatever we have, then it's like, oh, I'm going to lose it. Or if we don't have it, oh, I will never get it, which to me is that in direct tandem with the 8 worldly winds. I'm cognizant of time and we do end on time. So I have a lot more to say, but I want to just say that one thing I do think a lot about is when Audre said we were never meant to survive, and she definitely is speaking um, uh, to lesbians, to black lesbians, to black women, to marginalized people. We were never meant to survive in a world, that doesn't value our existence. And I also wonder, I also kind of play with, if you will, impermanence, right? Like, because we aren't meant to survive. We all have um, a time when we're going to leave this realm. Everything is disintegrating, and even our houses, our apartments. That's why we get the roof fixed and the sidewalk crumbling. Everything is impermanent. So just kind of thinking about that is, so it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. So she's definitely, in my understanding, speaking around those of us who have been marginalized and not allowed to speak up and speak out. But then also, if we recognize that we aren't going to live forever, that what are those silences that we don't give voice to, and bringing from my understanding of the Buddhist teachings, how can we share those silences? How can we share the harm without unleashing harm onto others? Can we bring the awareness? And when I say without unleashing harm, I don't mean not protecting oneself. I don't mean, I definitely do not mean that. What I mean is without the intention to cause harm. Often that when we have been harmed, when I have been harmed, my intention is like, I want to lash out unless I am, pausing and reflecting. And now, how can I respond skillfully, establish boundaries, take care of myself, but without the intention to cause harm? So, in closing, I just want to say that I really believe, for me, that Audre Lorde's light has served as a portal for me to the Dharma. Her prose and poetry have been compasses for me for 33 years. Her writings are some of my sacred texts. And I'm grateful for Ness for being the first person to kind of bring it in focus. And it was not his intention, but that was the gift, that was the impact. I'm grateful for Rima for her class, The Dharma of Baldwin and Lorde, and then us working together to being just really an invitation to bring, to look at text that are considered secular, to look at them and maybe see the sacredness and also see the connection in the ancient teachings, which is why I opened with Io's words, with Zenju's words. And I'll bring it to a close now because we're at 11:50. I want to make sure that there's some space for conversation. We don't have time to do breakout and then come back. So I just want to open it up. And thank you all. I realized I wrote so much because I'm on sacred fire. I'm in a sacred fire about this, around lifting these teachings, Dharma, the teachings of the Dharma, the teachings of Lord, making it accessible, making both accessible for those who know the Dharma, that it is a way for you to access Lord's teachings, particularly if you're not embodied as a lesbian, a Black woman, a feminist, that you can actually look at these writings and kind of say, so this is, to me, it's not just one way. I mean, the Dharma can also be a gateway to understanding the writings of Lord. Rima is actually working on a book called The Dharma of Baldwin and Lorde that will be coming out next year. I'm working on a book called Love, Justice, and Dharma, and where I will be bringing in these teachings as well. So I'd like to open it up for um, any thoughts or reflections. I'm going to stop the recording just so people can feel free to speak freely. The recording. One of the things that I really appreciate about the opportunity of looking at writers like Audre Lorde and James Baldwin and other writers as well, and looking in the context of Buddhism, is because we're all flawed. We're all flawed human beings, and I think that there is kind of this we can get into this thinking of like you have to be perfect in order to have any kind of connection with the Dharma. And so what I like is to be, and I think that both of those writers actually, I know Lord does, really encourages us to look at the contradictions and complexities within. And I just think that that just offers an opportunity to really, kind of move to quest for awakening and quest, but to really kind of move from that attachment to perfection in that way. So what I will do is we'll close with the merits, and then I will open it up for conversation because I want to do the merits um, on the recording. I think that's just really important. So it's taking a moment to recenter and reground. When we practice, we don't just practice for ourselves, but we practice for the benefit and the liberation of suffering for all beings, everywhere and without exception. Human, non-human, big, small, far, near, visible and invisible, all beings everywhere. May whatever merits we have gained from our practice and gathering today, may we share them with all beings everywhere. May all beings be free from enmity and danger. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings know joy, love, peace, compassion, and liberating wisdom in this lifetime, just as it is.